The other one.
Oh, I didn't even touch that. Oh, nice. Doing that one-handed too. That's impressive. Okay, go. All right, I think we're all good now. Okay, I appreciate everybody that looked at the GroupMe message and saw hopefully what we're talking about. Hopefully you understood what it meant. David has requested that when he's not here to do one-offs. What we call, we're not doing a series or a lesson book. I think he either doesn't like how I cover the lessons out of the book, or I think he's just very excited about presenting them in his own way. But let's keep David in our prayers while he and Olivia and Millie are in Washington. Got a few announcements that we'll share later on. Several people that are not able to be here. Before we get started, Luke, would you start us off with a word of prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for letting us all safely gather here. Lord, we for here that able to worship with each other and study with each other. We ask that you would help church about and helping us study, and that we students may be able to listen openly. And Lord, we thank you for all the blessings you've given us.
Amen. Thank you, Luke. So I wasn't here Sunday, but was listening along on the YouTube, and David in the 9 o'clock talked about the passage in Matthew chapter 26, and he made several good points, and I was struck. I've obviously know this and have read this many times, but I was struck by Peter's reaction there at the end of Matthew chapter 26 after he denies the Lord 3 times, and verse 75. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, who had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So he went out and wept bitterly. And so just thinking about that and thinking about what we might talk about this evening, I thought more about that. So I said, let's look at some examples of when people are crying in the Bible and what we might get from that. And so I suggested you find some places, use your concordance if you need to, or use your whatever your phone setting is. But we're going to look at the passage, identify what passage we're going to look at. Who's the person crying or weeping? It says here that in the New King James, Peter bitterly wept. I looked up wept and weep and found, I didn't write down all the references, but a bunch. I didn't even do crying. I did weeping and wept, but feel free to do crying as well. Who's the one crying or weeping? What's the setting? Why is that person weeping? And what application could we make? Obviously, lots of applications for all of these, I think. But for example, Matthew chapter 26, verse 75. Just to go back to get the full setting here, starting verse 69. Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, "You also were with Jesus of Galilee." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you are saying." And when he had gone out to the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, "This fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth." But again he denied with an oath, "I do not know the man." And a little later, those who stood by came up and said to Peter, "Surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you." Then he began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, who had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So he went out and wept bitterly. So the who in here is Peter. The setting is the crucifixion of Christ. Christ has been nailed to the cross. This is, Matthew has recorded to us what is going to happen. He's not actually been nailed to the cross yet. We see that in chapter 27, but this is the setting. Why? Why had he been crying? Well, one reason would be he'd realized the prophecy of Jesus had come true about him. Now, do you think that he was sad that Jesus was right? Was he sad that he was wrong? What do you think made him weep bitterly? That's honestly where I think the biggest would come from. Disappointed in himself. He's upset with himself because he's the one, the other account tells us, struck the ear of the servant. He's the one that said, we'll die with you. He's the one that said, look, master, we got a sword. He was ready. And he so much goes in the opposite direction. And when he's slapped with that, when he's slapped in the face with that, it's cutting. In another account, it says that Jesus looks at him when that rooster crows.
Yes, wanted to avoid being
He's very human. Peter is one of the most human characters in the Bible. He's very human. When push comes to shove, are we going to stand by our word? So that's one application that I thought we could make. We need to be careful of overconfidence in ourselves. Peter was like, not me. Jesus said, you're all going to leave. Peter said, not me. I will die with you. And it's great that he's confident. It's great that he has faith in himself. But we can see that he's way too confident, that he's overconfident in this situation, and he turns his back on the Lord. He, as the Lord predicts, betrays the Lord. So that's one application we can be careful of. If I had been Peter. Okay, well, when's our Peter situation? When is the opportunity that we have to explain why we do or don't do something? And do we stand there? Do we say, I don't care what they say about me. I'm going to defend why I'm doing this action. Or we just push comes to shove, kind of hoping nobody ever asks us. So that's the idea here. Tell us the passage. Give us some context. Who's the person? What's the setting? Why? And at least one application we can make. Obviously, many applications that we can make. Anybody want to comment on this one before we move on? All right, Luke's at the ready. Give us a spot, Luke, and you get bonus points if it's one of these that I wrote down right here. So, there is one that's got a star on it, so you get triple bonus points if you name that one. All right, Luke, what passage are we looking at?
John 11:35.
Okay, he got the bonus points. You get the triple bonus points. All right, John chapter 11. Where do you want to start, Luke? Okay, John chapter 11, starting in verse 28. Go ahead and read there for us. You read what you have, the passage you have prepared to talk about.
When he said these things, he went away and secretly prayed her. Peter had when she heard that, she rose quickly. Now Jesus had not yet come to the place where Martha met. Then the Jews who were with her in the house, comforting her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly, went out and followed her, saying, going to the tomb. And when Mary came and saw where Jesus was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and her were groaned in the spirit and was troubled, said, where have you laid him? Said to him, Lord, come and see. Then the Jews said, see how he loved was a cave and a stone lay against it. He said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, Lord, by this time there is a spirit in dead 4 days. He said to her, did I not say to you that it is the glory of God? And they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying. He lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the standing, why I said this, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. He who had died came out, bound with grave clothes, face was wrapped with a cloth. Said to them, "Listen, he has died."
Okay, so that was John chapter 11. Luke read verses 28 to 44. I did notice on Sunday that it's really hard to hear what anybody else says if you're watching on the YouTube. This picks up the speaker really well, unless David wears the microphone to the audience with him, and then it doesn't. Anyway, if you're listening later on or you're watching right now, John chapter 11, 28 through 44. All right, Luke, who is the person weeping?
I was highlighting verse 35,
Mhm.
which is the shortest verse. Jesus wept, so Jesus.
Now, is Jesus the only one weeping in this situation? In fact, they're like, "Where's Mary?" It's like, "Oh, she'll be over there weeping." That's who Mary is. She's a crier. Now, what's the setting here?
Lazarus, Mary's brother, and Martha's brother, who loved, has died.
So, is it unusual that Mary is weeping in this situation? No. Okay. But we're talking, Luke has highlighted Jesus weeping as well. Why is Jesus weeping?
Thing we know for sure is that he was grown in his trouble. Connect this maybe to Luke chapter 19, where Jesus is weeping because of the things that are taken from the people.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, yes, but
Mhm.
we know for sure.
And there definitely we'll be doing some speculating. Was Jesus weeping because Lazarus had died? Well, let's go back. Was Mary weeping because Lazarus had died? Most certainly. If your brother had died, unexpectedly, maybe, you would be weeping. Maybe if you're expecting him to die and he still died, he'd be weeping. Did it surprise Jesus that Lazarus died? Neil?
Jesus had heard that Lazarus was sick. It's time
Mm-hmm.
to delay
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But this is Jesus. He knows what's going to happen. He knows he's about to heal this guy. But I think Neil touched on it. He's weeping because of the distress that he sees there. Jimmy tied to that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is one of those times when Jesus' humanity really strikes. I mean, when you go into a room and you see that everybody's crying, you may not even have a connection to those people or to what, the reason they're crying, but you don't go in and start laughing your head off. You're like, it's sad to see what's going on here. Luke?
No thing, no well, I should say part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's somewhat different circumstances. One's sadness that will quickly guilty others incredible pain unto death.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew what was going to happen. He was all man, but he was also all God. But like you said, both show his felt the pain of others, and I like to think also he was sad that Lazarus was dead for the moment. He was probably terrified of what would happen.
Mm-hmm. He understood what the physical pain was going to be like, and he's anticipating that, and it's causing that anguish for him. Anybody else? Why Jesus is crying in this particular moment? All right, so what's our application? If somebody, the next person that we know who dies, I'm not going to go there with the instinct that maybe they're going to raise up from the dead. No, I'm going to see the people crying, or I'm going to cry as well. So what kind of application can we make? Luke?
Hold up, but idea that Jesus partially was crying on sight of the people. Oh, that no matter how miraculously Jesus was, notice Mary says in 32, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
Mm-hmm.
She thought he could save Lazarus from the brink of death, but it's unclear whether or not she thought he could raise him from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, because he doesn't ask, or we don't see it. But Jesus could. You can't pigeonhole his ability to save help.
Mm-hmm. And I always love Martha. Anytime we see Martha, she's one of the greats. Martha's like, oh, Lord, it's gonna smell really bad, but that just demonstrates his power. And like Neil said, he waited, made sure everybody knew this guy is dead. There's no like he's just sleeping really hard.
Another application is I just bring up Hebrews 4:15. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin.
David has brought up several times lately about our relationship with Christ and him being a brother of ours and him going through these things. And there's that compassion. That's how he feels. He understands when we're sad. He understands why we're sad. And there is that compassion, that empathy that he feels. Dave, you're chomping at the bit.
I've got some examples.
Okay, all right.
No, I mean, just to piggyback on this, in John's Gospel, the Creator didn't just trumpet his message from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He came down and shared the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Gave us a physical example. Gave the message to us personally. Just another example of how personal his care and concern.
Mm-hmm. The deeper you dig, the more you see the wisdom of God in all of this. He could have just announced it. There could have been a scroll. He could have buried a book somewhere and waited for people to discover. He came and he taught and he served as an example, and he cared for these people. Does he feel different today now that he's not here with us? No. Feels even more so. All right, Dave, send us to another passage.
Well, there's a couple in Psalms. Which one would you like?
The one you want to share, that's the one I would like.
Well, let's do Psalm 126.
Psalm 126, all right. Okay. You just want to read that whole psalm to us, Psalm 126?
We can do that.
Okay.
In Psalm 126, starting in verse 1, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. And our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. And they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing the sheaves.
Okay, Psalm 126. And I did not write Psalms down anywhere because I let that be its own category right there. But so who is doing the weeping in this psalm?
These are the people of God. These are the Israelites.
The text doesn't give us a date as to when this happened. I would argue it's likely. It says, "Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south." So probably after they've been carried away would make the most sense. But these people are, it says in the New King James says, those who sow in tears. So these people are weeping. What's their setting?
The setting of the psalm itself appears to be a recounting of the captivity.
Mm-hmm.
It appears to have been written after they've come back,
Mm-hmm.
around the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. This would have been the first priest consecrated to the new temple in Jerusalem for the celebrating of the sacrifices and services there. And so the weeping is for the separation that they experienced from God and from their home. The fact that they've been in captivity.
Even though they're now back in their homeland, they're still weeping from what they had gone through.
That's what they're recounting. That's the reason for the weeping. And now that they're back, those tears are being turned to joy. The ones who have gone out weeping, sowing with their tears, so to speak, have come back reaping a harvest of joy.
Okay, excellent. So Dave touched on the why. So what's our application? We're not in captivity. We've not been taken into captivity. Luke?
A lot of ways. Going out. What we're doing right now. Said we're not in captivity, but I mean we are.
We're not in that captivity, but we're in a yes.
We are in a captivity. The idea that they, verse 6, or no, verse 5, those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. I mean, that's how we should be acting. We're not supposed to be always sorrowful, but it's not heaven. It's not captivity. It's not going to be perfect. It's not what we've been promised. So we're doing our work here in tears and sorrow. Once our work is done, once our race is run, that will be joy in heaven.
So he didn't say this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. So are we supposed to be walking around weeping? Are we supposed to be sorrowful right now? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Solomon,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Solomon tells us
There is a
that
time.
for joy there's a
Mm-hmm. I almost wrote that one down too, but I didn't. I kept all the poetry ones. So there is that idea. So what's the application for us then? I mean, Luke has touched on it, and we've heard other things. Dave, I'm going to let you have the last word on that. You brought this to our attention, so what are we supposed to get from that?
For that entire captivity, that remain faithful. Relying on God is worth it.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like it was easier for them to see now that they were back. We're not back, but we know that they got to go back and will be going back. You know, there's that God keeping his promise. Neil?
This is reference to Babylonian captivity.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of that, Babylonian came back, finally gave up
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at Judges.
Mm-hmm.
Whole history. Finally,
Mm-hmm. And you make an excellent point about the Babylonians. Also, we're the Babylonians today. You know, I'm sure that some of these people were weeping because here God's people are being punished, and yet there's idolatry all around them. The Babylonians are doing really well, but God's justice will come out. God's punishment will be exact. And so, you know, we may weep about what we see in the world today, but understand God's judgment is going to come through. Jim?
sort of, all right, so tie it to Hebrews chapter 12.
Mm-hmm.
For the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. See a sorrowful situation, but joy is something that we look forward to. So joy is not necessarily equal to equated with earthly happiness,
Mm-hmm.
but it's connected directly to our faith.
Right.
So we can be joyful and have sadness at the same time. You know, we see this in examples of Jeremiah, for example.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent.
Of course, we see here this example of Jesus, the runner who spoke on before us, as the example of one who endured the hostilities, endured the pain, the suffering, the joy, crying out to God,
Mm-hmm.
yet there was joy connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, one way of looking at it while we're here in this building process.
Right.
Having that, but we're translated, we're in the building process. We built up these living stones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And we have that anticipation of what has been promised will happen and finding joy and comfort in that. All right. Several good examples. Megan?
I was gonna-
Yes, let's do it.
I was gonna look at the book of Ruth,
Oh, yeah,
but
that's bonus.
Specifically just chapter 1,
Mhm.
verses 6 through 14. Just the background, and most of us probably know this, but Naomi and her husband have 2 sons. Her husband died. Her 2 sons married, Ruth and Orpah. And they said it dwelled in Moab for 10 years. And after
Mhm.
that time, sons died, and Naomi told her daughter-in-law to leave and go home. And they were still young, they could still marry, but they didn't want to leave. Story at the beginning of it, but it basically has the main themes of family and loyalty when it comes to Naomi and Ruth. But starting in verse 6, it says, "Then she arose with her daughter-in-laws that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law were with her, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughter-in-laws, Go return to her mother's house. The Lord dealt kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grants that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. Kiss them, and they lifted their voices and wept. And they said to her, Surely we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb, and they might be your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. I should say, I have hope. If I should say, it should have a husband tonight, and should also bear sons, would you wait for them till they have grown? Would you restrain yourself from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone against me. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So, stopping here, I think the main applications, or I guess the main why, first of all, is
Mhm.
that they're sad to leave their mother-in-laws. And Obviously, I wouldn't have experience with mother-in-law, but I do have sister-in-laws now, or soon to be sister-in-law and sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And the connection between what I've seen my mom and my sister-in-law is a great connection. And some people don't have a great connection, but when we do see a great connection, even though it's been a couple of years, for them it's been 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally family, and they're just in that family. And it seems that Naomi has had a great impact on both Orpah and Ruth, which is why they're weeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. Megan read for us Ruth chapter 1, verses 6 through 14. This bond, it's a marriage bond, right? I mean, when the women joined Ruth's family, they're bonded now because of marriage, and that's it. What else? Why is this book in the Bible? Why do we know about Ruth? Say it again. She's in the genealogy of Jesus, so here's just the nice of all the people that preceded Jesus. Here's a nice little story, and we'll spend a couple of chapters talking about it. What makes this unique? And I like Megan's point. She used her mother and her sisters-in-law as examples. But what makes this, well, hopefully the same kind of connection in Angie and her family as well. But Luke?
About a lot for, I guess, the Old Testament, the idea of on Jews coming, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better term. Yes, we can all point to the two examples,
Rahab.
but I mean, 39 books, I can think of two examples. So, but it's the idea of version to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
That there are people who love the Lord or want to love the Lord who may not be able to yet,
Mm-hmm.
but with
Naomi.
with Naomi and her family, or spies, with God's intervention, people who want to or will love the Lord can.
Mm-hmm.
They're not already in the group, but they can be brought in.
Mm-hmm. Ruth and Orpah have been exposed to God Jehovah, and nothing against Orpah. She does what Naomi begs her to do, and goes back to her family. But Ruth, for whatever reason, stays there with her mother-in-law. It's so funny to me that this gets brought up so much in weddings, when it's really not about the husband and the wife. It's the wife and the mother-in-law. But anyway, verse 16, when Ruth says, "For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God." There's something that Ruth saw in Naomi, in Ruth's own husband, certainly, that said, I understand there's more than just, I'm going to be hanging out with you. It's that you come from a people and you come from a God, and I want to be in that relationship. I want to strengthen that, which hopefully is what Angie's daughters-in-law will see in their mother-in-law. Brian?
But when you're ready to move on, I got
Wow. All right, Brian's done with this. Anybody else?
when you're ready.
When Joshua?
I was just thinking, having connection, like daughter-in-law, brother-in-law, whatever, it's important because
I think that's an easy application we can make from this. We don't know. We don't have a lot of history of the 10 years that they've been a part of that, but something Ruth saw. You know, what got her? How would she have discovered the God Jehovah without Ruth. Maybe that's part of her tears, is I don't want to get separated from this. And so our relationships, we may not, you may have never heard this, but a lot of mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law don't get along. I know you may not have heard that before, but that may not be the relationship you think, but that's it. Just those connections, just how people see. So having those relationships and cultivating them and building them, I think is excellent. Dave?
One of the applications that occurred to me, knowing the general period of history, females of that time sometimes had professions, sometimes had the ability to provide for themselves, but most of them, they were provided for by their husbands, they were provided for by their fathers, their family. We've experienced not one, but 3 deaths of providers amongst this group. And despite the emotional bond, they are now facing what amounts to starvation. Why is Naomi going back to her family? Needs somebody to help take care of her. She's old. Does she have sons? No, she doesn't. And so, I can't take care of you. I can't even take care of myself. Why are you following me? Go take care of yourselves. I love you.
I'm releasing you from this bond.
And the takeaway that I get from this is that, first of all, our life choices are often made in fraud. This is not an easy time for them, to put it mildly. And yet the decision that Ruth makes is made with love and in righteousness. We can still make the right choice. That's an application.
Absolutely. I mean, we know the story and it goes well, but there's no reason to think in Ruth's situation that this is going to go well. I'm going to go to people who I don't know. They may even speak a language I'm only just now learning. They serve a God that I'm only just now learning about. Boaz turns out to be, I'm glad Boaz left the room. Boaz turns out to be quite the hero, but it didn't have to be that way. It could have been a whole lot. Oh, you're a Moabite woman? I don't care. I'll take care of Naomi. You go on about your way. But he steps up, but she doesn't know that's going to happen. So that there's a very stressful time, and yet that clinging there. All right, Brian, give us a really good one to go out on.
Well, I don't know if in the 15 minutes I'm in, if y'all talked about Jeremiah, the leading prophet. But what's interesting is that there's actually more about Joseph weeping than Jeremiah.
There is a lot.
And Jeremiah Joseph weeps when his brothers are first, when he first understands they're alive. He weeps when seeing Benjamin, Genesis 43. He weeps when he reveals himself to his brothers. He weeps over his father's death. And then when his brothers think that he's going to try to kill them now that their father is dead, and they go to him and ask for forgiveness, he weeps then again. And so at every one of these moments, what's interesting is this is all after he's gotten to this point in Egypt where he's gone through all of his trials. All the trials he went through early in life, we don't see weeping. We just see action. But when it's about him thinking about the moment and being in a moment and taking control, that's actually what you would think when there's weakness, there would be weeping. But it's not. It's when he's got the power to do something, and yet he still is weeping that they would think of him in this negative way or other things that are happening.
I was surprised. I stopped writing down all the things about Joseph because you're right. There is a lot of weeping. One of the passages, and you mentioned it, Genesis chapter 43, starting in verse 28. And they, Joseph's brothers, unbeknownst to them, I mean, they knew they were Joseph's brothers. They didn't know it was Joseph they were talking to. And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." and they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now, just to remind you, the brothers had already been once, but without Benjamin. And Joseph insisted that they come back with Benjamin, much to Jacob's regret. And so now they have done that. They have brought Benjamin. Verse 30, now his heart yearned for his brother, so Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Now we can talk about why he goes to hide himself in this particular moment, but why is he weeping? His brother is there. His brother Benjamin is alive. He's there right in front of him. Why is he weeping? I mean, Brian touched on it, but what is it about Joseph here that makes him weep when he sees his brother Benjamin? Is he sad that Benjamin's there? That Benjamin's alive? No. What does that mean about his brothers? That Benjamin's there and Benjamin's alive? Yeah, they didn't kill him. They didn't kill him. They didn't like Joseph. And here's his brother, son of the same mother, and she's been gone. And yet he has this emotion. Sadness is an emotion. Is he sad? Maybe. Happiness is an emotion. Is he happy? Yeah. It's just, but he lets all of these things out. It's funny. The man of the 80s, of the 90s, Macho Man. Does Macho Man cry? But we've talked about some of the strongest men in the Bible. Jesus, Joseph. We could have mentioned David. We could have mentioned Jacob. We could have mentioned Jeremiah. So many people here that are in tears, that are weeping because they're in touch with their emotions like that. Am I saying we should weep all the time now? Men, we should just start crying? What's our application? Joshua says we should start crying more. What's our application here? What do we get from this, from these examples right here? It's okay, what? I mean, it's okay to be emotional. Sometimes we push emotions away. Now, emotions can cause us trouble, right? Is Joseph guided by his emotions? Look at what Joseph does. Joseph is trying to present, I'm, an important person here. My brothers do not recognize who I am. I need to really make sure they're not just going to turn around and kill me again or kill my brother or anything like that. So he composes himself and he pulls himself away so that they don't see it. After that, he washes his face so they don't know what's going on. His emotions have overtaken him here, but he's in control of what's going on. He's still sticking to the plan. AJ?
That bottle up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they're allowed, they let themselves have the emotion. Act, do what they act on.
Mm-hmm. I wrote down David. I didn't do Psalms, but I wrote down when David is weeping after his son dies, the son with Bathsheba. David gets up and eats, and his workers say, "Why are you? You were weeping." He's like, "Well, while the child was alive,